thank you, Braden, and great to be with you all today. This will be a great session, not only for today, but for future reference. This will be a lot of information, a lot of resources, a lot of things to dive into in the future. So hopefully you find one thing to take away from today as we explore the intersection of 3D printing and community outreach and sustainability. And of course, if you have any questions or comments in the chat, please use it in the chat box. I'll be keeping an eye on that as well as Braden. And if you want, you can always let me know where you're joining us from. You can just the state you're from, or just in the United States if you don't want to specify. But yes, intersection 3D printing. We got we got Florida, we got San Diego, so we got coast to coast. Howdy, Crystal from Texas. And then, of course, we got the middle, Colorado, being represented as well. So wide range of folks joining us today. And if you were able to see my video in promoting today's session, I was standing in one of my favorite spots as I go on a walk around the corner from my house. Oh, yes, don't forget to have that chat set to everyone, so you're not just chatting with just me, but everybody can see your messages. But as I was recording this video, there was tons of trash. We had just had kind of a wild winter storm, blowing a lot of trash everywhere. And that was what inspired today's topic, was seeing all of the plastic that had been caught up in the trees and thinking about how 3D printing can really not be the entire answer to everything, but something that we may not consider when we talk about things like community outreach and sustainability. Our three main areas that we will be focusing on today are first 3D printing basics, but more specifically, the basics of 3D printing and how they relate to sustainability and community outreach. Then we'll dive into community connection. Very, very excited about this portion. Through exploring my own community, I found tons of things that I didn't know about. And I hope through some of the resources that we share that you will also get connected in your community. And then finally, if you don't know where to start, if it sort of feels all overwhelming, we have some great resources to get you started today. Even something as simple as making a copy of a template email that you can use to send to your city council to get involved with 3D printing in your community. So be sure to stick around for those resources. But I want to definitely start with an audience question specific to today's topic, and please change that chat to everyone so everyone can see. So what are some ways that we can get involved in our communities? Now, it can be something as simple as, if you want to say, we go trick-or-treating with our family. You know, that's a way to get involved in your community. There's more, I know that there are some folks here that do a little bit of volunteering. So anything that you do to stay involved, to get connected, to know what's going on in our local communities. You know, we hear a lot about what's going on globally, that we often neglect what's happening in our own backyard. So we have volunteering with nonprofits. Awesome. Love it, Krista. Thank you. We got visiting assisted living homes or those that have been unhoused. A lot of opportunities there. Joining a run club. Love it. Love it. Running run club, I'm assuming like with other people or maybe with students. And then Kate saying some community yard work. Wonderful. Thank you everybody for sharing. And even in some of the things that you've shared right now, there are some thoughts that pop into my mind where 3D printing can sort of fit into that outreach. So why 3D printing? And how can 3D printing really lend itself to community outreach? And because 3D printing is something that, you know, if you were to ask people 5 years ago, 10 years ago, let's go back 20 years ago, 3D printing would seem like something from science fiction. The ability to take a printer, create a 3D design of infinite possibilities, and then within hours, have the thing that you've designed in your hand. It feels like science fiction, and yet it's something available to all of us today, available to all of our communities. Three things we're going to talk about. And again, it's a little more information heavy, but when we get into the exploration on some of these websites, I really encourage you to start specifying your outreach to your community. But why 3D printing, accessibility and education, the sustainability and local impact potential 3D printing offers. And then finally, we'll dig in a little bit into the cost and resource management if this is something that is going to be explored in your community. Now, I'm using a little bit of AI generated images, and if you've ever used AI, you do know that it doesn't always do the best on spelling. So if you look at this image, don't look too closely. But with accessibility and education, one of the things that often gets overlooked with 3D printing is how important it is to understand that technology. It can be complex and it does require unsuccessful implementation. But once those things are taken into account and communities are investing in time to understand the technology, then those printers don't just become expensive paperweights. So offering things like trainings and workshops, having community outreach nights, having information nights where folks could come into a space and they could be handed objects that have been 3D printed and they can start to reshape how they start to see 3D printers. And so having those things available for the community is huge. This is something where I love to talk about this when I was a classroom teacher. When I was teaching fourth grade and sixth grade, we would often get into the logistics of you just order something from Amazon. I bet if we were to ask in the chat, when was the last time you ordered something from Amazon? I bet folks in the chat would say as recently as today. And I would say as far back as maybe a couple weeks ago. I think almost all of us have ordered something from Amazon, and it's become so easy, so convenient that we forget what that process is actually including. Manufacturing the product we're buying, shipping the products to our local areas, having trucks or delivery places bring those things to our houses. It's a lot of things that are going on. One of the most compelling reasons for communities to adopt 3D printing is the potential for using sustainable materials. And those can often align with community goals that promote that responsible use of resources. Now, another benefit to communities is the local production benefit. So for example, if there are rural communities that don't have as much access to shipped goods, 3D printers can offer a solution where they can not only print things that you don't need to wait for, but it also allows for that customization of parts. I always like to think into the future and imagine what the future of different businesses are going to look like. One place I absolutely hate going to is the mechanic. I don't know much about cars. I don't know much about how to fix cars. And I swear every time I go, there's something new I need to fix or something new I need to address. And I imagine a world where I can go to a mechanic where they have a 3D printer that can print the exact part I need for my car, which would hopefully lower the cost because they didn't have to have that piece manufactured somewhere else and shipped to the place. It's made right there. It can happen in a matter of minutes, and then that can be installed in my car. That's a future of local production benefits that can come from embracing an idea of 3D printing. We also have a comment in the chat, being able to cut out the delivery eco impact of delivery trucks as a benefit. Yeah, it's not often thought about. It's just become so automatic. In this graph, take a second to explore this graph from 2018. And there's a little bit of irony in this graph because they use the green colors to show the different plastics. And the green is actually more of the non-biodegradable type of plastic. But if we look on the right, do you see what percent of plastic is PLA, which is the most commonly used plastic in 3D printing? 10.3 compared to the most commonly used PET plastic of 25. The way that we help our communities and the way that we help our world is not by doing all of these things perfectly, but just trying to do a little bit better all the time. And if we start to realize how much plastic we're actually using, how much plastic we are putting out into the environment, we can start reshaping how we see the production of those plastics. I'm going to put in the chat a link to a YouTube video. It's very lengthy, but definitely worth exploring. This is a video of somebody who took this issue of plastic, like plastic bottles from soda, and found a way to take that plastic, to melt it back down into a reusable filament, as well as a way to wind up that plastic to then be used back with a 3D printer. This is pretty mind-blowing because imagine a school that had not only a 3D printer, but a way to take all of their plastic that students were throwing away, and you found a way to repurpose that plastic that could be melted down, turned into filament, and then used to print manipulatives for the classroom. Think about everything that would happen in that cycle if that's what was going on in our communities. And then cost and resource management, it's important to understand that cost effective in the long run, there can be that initial investment in equipment and materials. So if you are planning on implementing 3D printing into your community, understanding that planning and that cost is important, as well as the maintenance and upkeep. 3D printers do require a little bit of maintenance, so it's important to plan for these things and to have an understanding of who's going to be in charge of these 3D printers within your community projects. All right, now getting into the more exciting things. The video I'm about to show you is a community that's about 20 minutes north from me. I didn't know this existed. I didn't know this was a real thing. A lot of us have heard about it, but if you have not heard about 3D printed homes, I want you to check out this video so you can see not only how homes are made using 3D printers, but how beautiful they can look, how it reduces the cost, and how you can have 3D printers similar to what students are using are being used and utilized to 3D print entire homes. So I'm going to put a link to the technology that is being used to print these homes because I had no idea. And then I found out that the machine that I'm about to show you, this beast right here, is out there working in my local environment right now. That this Vulcan home-sized 3D printer is something that I could go see 20 minutes north of me. And to me, that's an important thing to know, not only what's happening in my community, but talking to my family and to people that are growing in this community to understand what's happening. That it's, you may not see the same traditional workers that are out there building a home. You might see a giant machine, and understanding that getting folks and students involved in the understanding of how 3D printers work set them up for better success in the future. We have a comment in the chat about an article 10 years ago of a project that built 10 homes in 24 hours in high needs areas of China. Much smaller, obviously, probably than the one we were showing, but very cool to see the progress. So thinking about in 10 years, we went from printing pretty simple houses to now printing very complex multi-room homes, thinking about what's going to happen 10 years from now. Awesome. Thank you for those comments in the chat. Always love to see it. Now, for community outreach, how does this all connect to our community? Well, understanding the 3D printers that are available in your neighborhood, exploring local projects and opportunities, assessing community knowledge. There are many opportunities for folks to use 3D printers that may not have them either in their homes or in their schools. One area you can find are public libraries. So this one's for Braden. Braden, I did a little search over in your area, and I found that if you live in San Diego, you can go to San Diego's website, and they have a list of places within the city that you can send your files to have them printed and that you could then pick up free to the community. So there are plenty of resources out there. It takes a little bit of searching, a little bit of work, but when you do, and then Braden says they got some 3D printers in that library. Super cool. I didn't even know that. That's awesome, Braden. Very cool connection there. So public libraries are a great resource. I've heard of also military bases having access to 3D printers as well. And then local colleges. I've heard of local colleges that not only have 3D printers, but they have access to very, very large 3D printers. I've also heard of local colleges that have time where they send students to local communities and elementary schools to teach other people the basics of 3D printing. So definitely finding those ways to reach out to local colleges. And then my favorite thing, I've been waiting, and I just could spend the entire session talking about this, exploring the opportunities that are in your neighborhood. And the website I want to show you today is called Enabling the Future. And I'll put this link in the chat for you all. Enabling the Future is the website that I would go to, I would save, I would bookmark, because Enabling the Future is an online global community of digital humanitarian volunteers that are using their 3D printers to print upper limb devices and low-cost prosthetics for children and adults in need. So what you have here is you have open source designs And folks and communities and groups and organizations that already have 3D printers can volunteer their printers and their time where they print prosthetics that are then packaged, assembled, and sent to people in need. So if you go to this website, you can explore a map to see what places around you are in need or what places already have these systems in place. So if I wanted to look, I live out in Texas, I could go to this enable community map and I can see all of the volunteers around the world that are using their 3D printers to print prosthetics for people around in their community. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to go up here to Texas during this with this interactive map. And if I wanted to see what organizations are already getting involved, here's one close to me. Boom. And now I can see enable at Dell Technologies right up the road for me. Here they are printing those prosthetics. And look at that. Look at this great image of a rainbow prosthetic hand for a girl that was printed and shipped out to New Zealand. Like, this is the type of stuff that I love to see 3D printers being used for. It's not just printing those cool knickknacks or printing a little thing you can use in your classroom, but we're seeing the global and local impact. And then Hannah saying that printed a few hands over the years. Love it, Hannah. I love that you knew about this resource already. Very cool. Another place where you can explore some opportunities are local schools. So finding out if you have a 3D printer and you know that local schools are in need and need some materials. Materials are very expensive, so reaching out and finding how you can use your 3D printer. Or if schools have 3D printers, but they're lacking the time to train and help students get involved, setting up community clubs and after-school programs to educate students as well. And then obviously assessing where that need is, reaching out to people around you and figuring out where the need is. And I'm going to put a link in the chat that if you want to get involved in your community and you want to email some decision makers. So for example, you want to reach out to your local library and you want to know if they have 3D printers or access to get 3D printers, or if you want to reach out to your city. So talking to your city council, talking to different decision makers. I have created 2 templates. This first one is a request to your local library where you could simply copy and paste and change the parameters to meet your needs. And then the second one is an email template if you're sending a letter to your local community or committee. So you could simply use these letters, send them out, and as you do so, hopefully see some investment in those 3D printers. So there's that link in the chat for you all. As soon as you click on that, it will allow you to make a copy of those templates. And then Hannah, I believe when we put this up on YouTube, we should be able to put that in the description as well. So if you are watching this recording, going down to the link in the description to get a copy of those templates. Okay, my last question as we wrap up are very quick. Like I said, a lot of information, a lot of resources. But my last question to you all is, what ways can you see 3D printing benefiting your community? Whether it was something bigger, like getting involved with Enable to printing prosthetics, or maybe something just as simple as doing a quick Google search to see what 3D printers are available in your area. So I will type that in the chat if you want to see. As I get to my last slide, teeing it up for Hannah for next week. Next week, we have an awesome session. Definitely perfect timing. All right, so next week, if you join us next week, you will be joining Hannah at the same time, 4 o'clock Eastern time, to learn how to create 3D Valentines in Tinkercad. A few comments here, using the upscaling opportunities. Love it. Inspiring the youth, yes, getting students involved, allowing them to do the designing and the creation of these solutions for community outreach and sustainability. Kate says, knowing the 3D printers that are available in our area can be awesome, can be wonderful. Hannah mentioned a blog with using 3D printing to visualize ways to improve equity. Super cool. And then, oh, Hannah says next week, invite your students. So if you have students that want to get involved with designing Valentine's in Tinkercad, definitely get your students there and signed up ready to go at Tinkercad. Awesome. Thank you again, everybody. Thank you for your participation. Love to see all of the comments in the chat. Have fun exploring these different resources. And as always, if you end up creating anything, making anything, or implementing these things, definitely let us know. And so just send the invitation we get to students. Yeah, Hannah, if you could maybe put a link just to the session for next week, and then could students use that to sign up? Possibly, we'll see. There is the link, Hannah. Awesome. And I believe the invitation. We'll see what Hannah says. Recommending the teacher to sign up, and then just displaying the learning session, the Zoom meeting in front of the class. But then having students sign into their Tinkercad would be a great way to follow along. So if you're a classroom teacher, you sign up, project the session live in front of your class, and then having students involved with their computers will be a great resource. Awesome. Thank you again, everybody, for participating. We are just at that 20-minute mark, and hope to see you next week. And best of luck reaching out to those communities. Thanks, everyone.